backward economy with a predominantly illiterate population. Out of a total population of 150 million people, there were only approximately 4 million industrial workers. On the basis of a nationalized planned economy, within 2 decades, Russia had established a powerful industrial base, developed industry, science and technology, and largely abolished illiteracy. It achieved remarkable advances in the fields of health, culture and education. It was the nationalized planned economy that dragged Russia into the modern era, building factories, roads and schools, and educating men and women. Electricity, running water, literacy and food security were brought to the people of the Soviet Union. And don't let us forget that all this was achieved at the time when the Western world was in the grip of mass unemployment and economic collapse in the Great Depression. Despite the terrible destruction of the Second World War, the Soviet Union increased its GDP 5 times over from 1945 to 1979. In 1950, the GDP of the Soviet Union was only 33% that of the USA. By 1979, it was already 58%. By the late 1970s, the Soviet Union was a formidable industrial power, which in absolute terms had already overtaken the rest of the world in a whole series of key sectors. The Soviet Union was the world's second biggest industrial producer after the USA, and was the biggest producer of oil, steel, cement, tractors, and many machine tools. All this was achieved virtually without unemployment or inflation. Unemployment like that in the West was unknown in the Soviet Union. In fact, legally, it was a crime. Moreover, in most of the post-war period, there was little or no inflation. Before perestroika, the last time meat and dairy prices had been increased was in 1962. Bread, sugar, and most food prices had last been increased in 1955. Rents were extremely low. The Bolshevik Revolution laid the basis for the emancipation of women, and it is undeniable that women in the Soviet Union made colossal strides forward in the struggle for equality. Women played a large part in the revolution. Soldatki, soldiers' wives, demonstrated to demand food, state support and respect. Becoming more radical as the revolution advanced, they began breaking into homes and requisitioning any luxury items they thought undeserved. A flour trader who did not want to offer them his goods at a discounted price was beaten up by a band of soldatki. Milliners in Smolensk, mostly young Jewish women, went on a fierce strike for an 8-hour day, a 50% wage increase, a 2-day weekend, and paid holidays. A Muslim convention in May in Moscow was attended by 900 delegates, almost a quarter of them women. When a man asked why men should grant women political rights, a woman answered, "You act as though you can grant us rights. Rather than that, we shall seize them." The 1919 programme of the Communist Party proclaimed, quote, "Not confining itself to formal equality of women, the party strives to liberate them from the material burdens of obsolete household work by replacing it by communal houses, public eating places, central laundries, nurseries, and so forth. Between 1917 and 1927, a whole series of laws were passed giving women equality with men. Women received equal pay, special maternity laws were introduced banning long hours and night work, and establishing paid leave at childbirth, family allowances, and childcare centres. Abortion was legalised in 1920, divorce was simplified, and civil registration of marriages was introduced. The concept of illegitimate children was abolished. The number of women in higher education as a percentage of the total rose from 28% in 1927 to 43% in 1960 to 49% in 1970. In the words of Lenin, quote, "In the literal sense, we did not leave a single brick standing of the despicable laws which place women in a state of inferiority compared with men." The Russian Revolution exerted a profound influence. The slogan, "Peace, bread and land," had an enormous appeal in a war-torn and impoverished world, suffering from the exploitation and oppression of capitalism and the war which it had imposed on the world. An alternative to capitalism had emerged. Humanity had had dreams of justice, equality and plenty for millennia, but now these were no longer hopes and dreams. They were being translated into practice, into reality. Socialism as an idea in Australia became much more popular and influential. One example of this was the adoption by the Labour Party in 1921 of the socialist objective. Out of the various factors of the time and the influence of the Russian Revolution, the Communist Party of Australia was formed in October 1920. In the United States, a Communist Party was also formed, which went on to lead the labour movement of the 1930s, including the groundbreaking 1934 Minneapolis and San Francisco general strikes, and the formation of the militant industrial CIO